What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the 1% Club podcast. I'm Andrew, your host,
I'm Tawfiq.
and we have a very special guest today. He is the VP of New Developments at PSR Brokerage. We have some exciting projects that you're going to talk to us about today. Yeah, welcome, Graham.
Thanks for having me, guys. I look forward to chatting with you guys.
We're glad to have you on.
Yeah,
Super excited.
I'm excited to be here. It's the studio. Everything looks great. Yeah.
Now, for the people that might not know you, obviously a lot of people do know you. Would you be able to just introduce yourself, kind of what you do at PSR?
Sure. Yeah. So I'm, it's VP of New Development Sales and Marketing. So, I'm sure you guys know the sales and marketing jobs of guys like us in the city. We help builders bring their development to fruition, to market, and then manage the sales and marketing of that throughout the sales cycle until we get them to construction and we get the building finished and occupied. So.
Yeah, and I saw that your experience in that field that you're working on right now, especially in new developments, you've been in it for quite some time.
Yeah, it's almost, I think it'll be 16 years in September. So it's been, I think I'm almost 6 billion in new construction sales. Like I've been solely focused on that since my second year in real estate. So I said, I don't really teach it in university, but you tend to get specified into this group, and there's not a lot of us. So it's kind of neat to have that type of like sole focus, right, in the real estate field.
For new developments, probably in the last 2 years, ever since the interest rates started going up crazy, we've seen that the sales volume has dropped over half.
That's right.
What have you seen so far in terms of like what projects are selling well?
So I see two sides of things. Whenever you have something like this, it's either a race to the bottom, right? So I think we used to say drive till you qualify or whatever it is. It says go out as far as you can till the PSF hits the number you want. Or you're bringing a unique proposition to the marketplace, right? I really think that Toronto for the longest time has just been kind of doing 32-story towers with a podium and, calling if it has marble, then it's a luxury development and they charge more, right? Like it's a unique product that you can say, hey, I have a one-off of this and it's something special, or, it's $1,000 a square foot sub in a place I really probably don't know where it is, but those are the two that are doing well. And I also, people are definitely a lot more cautious of their buy. So they're asking a lot more questions. And I'll say that that's good for real estate in Toronto. I have to say in 16 years, I've very rarely been asked who the architect is, who the designer is. Like I might get asked who the developer is, rarely. And if I ask someone who the developer was on their project, they usually say Menkes or Tridel, and it's not. Like there's just not a lot of knowledge. So it's like going to a car dealership and just great, whatever car, right? Like there's definite differences between these. So I'm hoping that people start to ask more questions, and in a market like this, they're able to. They don't just have to fill out a worksheet and say, I hope I get it.
Yeah, I hope I get it.
Like to me, that's actually kind of crazy. Like it's the largest purchase of your life and you're doing it on the rush of a worksheet. Thank goodness there's a 10-day cooling off period so they can actually analyze their purchase. But it's great. People can ask questions and they can really get to know the product they're buying.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the 10-day cooling period, because in a busy market, when we were dealing with buyers, usually we would tell them, first of all, we don't even want a worksheet from you unless you're absolutely willing to go forward with it.
Mm-hmm. You guys get access, you figure out what the best view is and on what floor to save them the premiums. Like there is an art and a science to picking that right unit, especially when you have, like I used to say, when buildings were selling out, it's, if you buy a pop for 50 cents and can resell it for $1, great. And if you buy it for 60 cents and resell it for $1, are you still upset? There's still 40 cents to be made, right? But now it's like you really want to maximize that, because a lot of people are purchasing for their own living as well. And that's a whole different conversation when they're buying for themselves. But I really think everyone should be putting their own purchasing hat on when they're looking at that, because at the end of the day, when you're buying pre-construction, the most powerful position in the world is being able to close on it and having a product that you could say, I could live in that. Because if those two things are there, you can assign it. But if you can't, you need to be able to close, or you're a wounded bird. You can lease it out. And if it's a great unit, you're happy to lease it out. You don't want to just sell the paperwork because it doesn't look great in the building or the development didn't turn out how you wanted. So again, like for the largest purchase of your life, these sound like prudent things you should be looking at when you're investing. So I think having the time to do that stuff now only creates better product, right? It culls the herd of bad agents that I call like nightclub marketers. You know what I mean? Like you're just trying to get to the velvet rope and then it's all done. Like you guys will provide value for your clients. And if you know the project, they'll do well. You know, they'll outperform other ones and you'll get repeat business because you've handled their money and made them a great profit. So
Right.
that to me, I think it's going back to pre-con of building your client base. Because agents who just market, they do okay, but you guys know, you try to move a $2 million unit just through throwing out an e-blast. It doesn't work. But if you have a great client that you can call and say, hey, there's a penthouse coming up, I have access to it before anyone else, do you want to see it? That's providing really value for your client, giving him time to think about it, getting him access. That's not happening unless you have a relationship. So I think it's going back to making relationships, saying, I got 10, 15 great buyers. And then you're able to go in where you couldn't before and say, hey, if this project works for my people, I know I have 4 or 5 buyers. And you know what 4 or 5 buyers does in a market? You can bend the game towards your position. You have leverage.
I just want to go back to your point. You were saying now people are starting to ask more about the developer, the architect.
That's right.
And I think it's very important to ask these questions. But why do you think it matters for the potential buyer to ask, and who was the developer and the architect?
Well, listen, we know like it's the history. You want to work with a developer that's done, like I'd be scared under 10 projects, right? And I'd want to see mid-size, low-rise, master plan. Like I want to see a breadth of projects so I know that they've been through it, right? They've experienced it. But yeah, I mean, like having a developer that's good, that works with quality builders, that works with quality. But when you look at every other city, like it's people who travel. Like I want people asking questions because I love Toronto. I love architecture. I travel because of architecture and food, and the people, right? So we have the best people in the world. We have the best food in the world because we keep our own identities when it comes here. Like it's amazing. But our architecture is, like, I want to say, I wish it was on par with more world-class cities. And like, you know, I kind of give the analogy, like if the build quality of a Honda compared to a build quality of a Rolls Royce, if a Rolls Royce was only 25% more than a Honda, no one would buy the Honda because this is just such a far superior thing. And that's usually the difference between commodity real estate and luxury real estate, or premium real estate, as I would say, because I'm not just looking at luxury as the materials. It's like everything we have, everything I have in my life that I look at my house, I'm a minimalist. So anything I value is of a limited number and of high quality. And I'll say, like, if I can't afford to go on a nice vacation, I'll stay at home. I will wait 4 years to go on a good vacation, then do an okay one every year. That's just the way my mind works, right? Like I would much rather do that. So, you know, when you're looking at these international, you know, cities, and you're looking at these world-class architects, they have areas that world-class architecture goes. It defines their skyline and it creates a value that's unlike any other in that area. You look at Billionaires Row, $6,000 a square foot, and one over, you're getting 3. And it's because the best architects in the world put their stuff up here when you're on the best block. So I want people to be asking these things to make developers say, hey, I need to actually look into these things. I can't just plop out a square box, get max density, have very little thought put into it, and I'll make money. That's easy. Like that's easy. But if you don't demand more, that's all you're going to get. And it's like, I want to create these pockets where we're able to have a skyline that really, and in the numbers where when you're reselling, buildings with the right architect and the right team sell for more anywhere else in the world. I'm lucky enough to be part of some big projects that have international names. And I will say that creates everyone else in the world calling, saying, oh, that's what I want for my pied-à-terre. The right architect, the city, the name I know, all these things. Like it's like collaborations, you know, when someone goes together and puts together the right club, that piece of retail goes off, right? Or that shirt or shoe or whatever it is. The same rules apply to the real estate. It's a product you're buying. It's a reflection of yourself. And when people see the best in the world, it gravitates, right? So that's, if they ask, we'll get better stuff. That's bottom line.
With the collaborations as well as multiple companies that have brands and reputations that are behind them as well. So it just makes it that much better.
That's right. That's right. They're all, yeah, you're right. Leveraging off their reputations and they don't want to let it down.
I'm actually in agreement that I'm a firm believer in quality over quantity, but it's kind of a catch-22 situation because in Canada as a whole, we have a constant like chronic supply issue. We don't have enough of it.
Hmm.
We're not building enough high rises for housing to be affordable. I think we need to build like over 1 million houses over the next few years. But in the last couple of years, we've only delivered like 200,000 or something. So we're much like there's a big shortfall. So
Lots of people coming in and not enough houses being built. Yeah.
So what do you think? Like, should we just continue building cookie cutter glass buildings, or should there be better architecture?
I still think that like when you build something beautiful, there can be a lot of thought put into it. It's really like, look at Bjarke Ingels. Like he started designing things for the Boys and Girls Club. Like you can't tell me that those budgets were huge, right? They were like government buildings, but he found the way to design these beautiful designs in an efficient manner that turned out to be something luxury wanted. Like when you get very smart people together with, with some funding or whatever, the government behind them and zoning to be a little better and the red tape to be a little better, it allows talented people to work together. But when it takes you 6 months to make a small change to your, like, no, everyone just sits and goes, just leave it. But really, those minds come in at different points and they bring great ideas to it. It's difficult to get things done in the city. That same box is probably easier to put up for a developer than it is to have, a great cantilevered overhang and a beautiful commercial space that could attract, great tenants, right?
I know you guys have a very exciting project you're working on, Freed,
Mm-hmm.
in downtown Toronto. So can you talk more about that?
Where I was saying it's that working with the best in the world. So when you have a great location, luckily a lot of the people that we work with have the same mentality that you're obligated to do something really good with it. It's a location that everyone will see, will frequent, that becomes part of the Toronto skyline. So putting together, I say, like working with the best architects in the world, our location is prime. So we were able to attract architects that want to show off their work. Okay. They're not cheap. You can't get them for 32-story buildings. There's not enough density, but to get a New York or Hong Kong skyline, you have, these towers, and these are the guys that build them, and what they do and can create is phenomenal. Like
just to clarify to the audience, the location is Adelaide and Duncan.
Yeah, Adelaide and Duncan is the old Crocodile Rock site. So, but this is where I'm saying, like, even look at Duncan, you have, like, we've hired Adrian Smith and Gordon Gill. So those are the two, Smith and Gill architectural firm, in my opinion, is, best in the world. I mean, they're responsible for the Burj Khalifa and Central Park Tower. So when we're looking at, history of or DNA lineage of an architect, like the most fantastic building in Dubai and New York, like that's pretty good, right? So when you look at Duncan, that's why I'm so excited over that strip is, what's coming up south of me is Frank Gehry's Forma.
Yeah.
Like you look at Forma and you look at our building, and those buildings, like Freed Hotel and Residence and Forma, are the two most beautiful buildings in that downtown core. And when you look around them, you go, yeah, they are a lot different than everything else, right? Like we have commercial downtown, but we never had our like downtown luxury Manhattan, right? That's like a site what a sexy site to infill. I'm not saying going out to the burbs, like filling in our most dense, most populated area of the city. Like it's exciting. So when you see world-class architecture start to develop together, you'll see more of it. So with Forma, with us, that just means you'll see more. And now we're going to develop a skyline that's 70 to 90 stories of this amazing architecture that when we go around the world is proud to be, shown off and say we're from Toronto. And then like we have a skyline that's not just commercial glass towers,
Yeah, I've been telling people that it's going to be the Ritz-Carlton killer because we don't have very often hotel residences coming, first of all, into Toronto. There's not that many buildings like that in the first place. And secondly, once Freed Hotel and Residence is done, like Shangri-La, it's going to be like 25, 30 years old.
Yeah.
So it's going to be brand new.
You're exactly right. Like we were lucky in about, 10, 15 years ago, we got a lot of great hotel residence concepts, and they came at one time. It's probably too much for one time for that time ago, but there were units. People wanted larger unit sizes, and developers are making buildings that maybe have a 10% 3-bedroom count. Like people in those type of product, they want 2,000 square feet laid out well, not a 900 square foot penthouse with 6 studios attached, making it a Frankenstein penthouse. Like it looks weird when you see that floor plan. The columns weren't put in the building to be divided that way, right? So it's having ours being delivered in 2030. Not only does everyone love a long deposit structure, because that's what's so great about real estate. If you buy $1 million stock today, it costs you $1 million. If you buy $1 million unit, it's 15% over 3 years, and you get to leverage the hard work of that city and inflation and everything coming up. It's great. So you're able to say then in 2030 that everybody else is 25 years old and we'll be 1 year old, and we're seeing it. That's like the product we have that's unique in that 10-story penthouse mix at the top. I'd say it's probably the most popular product that we have right now. Like it's at 2,000 to 6,000 square feet. So it shows Toronto really wants it, and the most calls I've ever had internationally over any product in my life. When you have an international architect, artist, like Takashi Murakami is going to have his artwork, his sculpture live in the hotel lobby. And to everyone around the world, like these are things that they recognize from hotel lobbies and experiences they have around the world. So when you bring those with a name that they say is, I know that name, the architect, I know the developer, I know the artist, I know the designer, and there's only 400 units. Because, when we do 70, 80 story towers in the city, we cram 1,500 units into it. It's just around the world, that's not the most luxurious place to be. There's a lot of people that want luxury, but they don't want to share it with 24. So they're coming back saying, 400 with the hotel amenities. That's the athletes who want to go to the spa and then go to the pool and have a world-class dining experience all in the 4 hours they have off before they get on a plane again.
How long does it take for a massive project like this to be delivered?
It's 7-8 years. Like we're going to be, our Tarion, we're delivered in 2030. So
before that, how long has it been in the making?
Oh my goodness. It's incredible. Like to put something like this together. And there's also a reason why people don't work with a lot of different groups. They keep it all in-house with the same architect and their designer in-house. And it's because it's just easier. There's everyone, it's like on time in Japan. And then like, it's a lot to put together. But when you're working with the best in the world, they collaborate so well together. Like, working with guys like Karl Lagerfeld on Art Shop or Philippe Starck, like I often think like these are people that are defining what style and culture will be, not just what it is. And when you see these guys working on things, it's a different experience than having an all in-house shop, crank out everything, right? So yeah, it's an incredible long time to plan. It's a lot of amazing egos working together to both have their vision be seen, but when people are really, really smart, they tend to work well together. So yeah, it's exciting, but a long process. A long process to bring something great.
See the building after it's finished, but it's been like maybe in the making 10 plus years.
Yeah, like we've been 2 years of just like making sure everything's perfect, and then the collaborations. It says a lot of it is the love for Toronto that made it easy. A lot of these guys want to put their foothold and be known with Toronto, so that's what made like having Katsuya sign their deal right now. Normally, that's done 2 years before the building's finished, but they want to be part of that. They love the people, the culture, the finance, everything. They just said, you haven't built the commercial spaces we want, so it's coming. Location. Yeah, they love it.
So you talked about some of the special people you're working with at Freed, especially. They're very innovative. They've done a lot of collaborations like Art Shop at, I think it's at 5 Sudan. They've done 150 Red Path condos with students. Usually they do stand apart. Their designs, they're a little more stylish, little like soft loft styles in the King West area. I know you guys are also working on like a Blue Mountain project.
That's a unique one too. It's the last developable site on Blue Mountain. So there's 2 sites left, and Free Development has both of them. So it'll be the new face of Blue Mountain, which is like, I love Blue Mountain, but it kind of looks like a gingerbread village. Like it's going to still have that look, but this will be new product. There hasn't been anything new there in 22 years. My amenity is a ski hill. It's tough to build another condo without amenity beside us. So it's really nice to have that and be able to design something that will really be the face of Blue Mountain for the years to come. But yeah, they've always, like, King West was that first real playground for Free developments where you had this really interesting part of the city with 13-story zoning. It was low. So you had to make something that was kind of unique. You couldn't even get 30 stories. You had to do these. So these were buildings, like you said, soft lofts. I remember one of the first kind of collaborations we did was with Philippe Starck at 75 Portland. You guys remember the AK-47 lamps? Right. Gold lamps? Like that was like, it was doing these things that you all of a sudden started to see a different buyer come in and buy. Like those were large, like those were 1 bedrooms that were 650 to 720 square feet. Like that's a huge unit for a 1 bedroom now. but that was what people wanted. And that artist appeal to it was like, it was onto it. And King West is a great example. That was a mix of great location, great design, and then also the commercial and retail, right? Like great restaurants and bars, and really created a vibe for that area. And then 150, 155 Redpath and Art Shop was kind of the Freed's Midtown expansion. And then after Peter bought all the major resorts in Ontario, which Blue Mountain, the last develop, and then actually, yes, Horseshoe, Muskoka Bay, and Deerhurst. There's so much hospitality, and like most developers don't want to deal with that. They want to sell it off. Like, I kind of like the fact that Peter's always partnering with the people who are buying into his buildings, because he's, it's a restaurant, it's this commercial. So there's always this invested interest from the developer in perpetuity past when the building closes, which I think is a unique, proposition to that type of product. Yeah.
Yeah. So these are some special visions that I guess Peter Freed has for his company to work on all these different special sites. From an investment standpoint, like because pre-construction, we never know. There's always a risk of cancellation. And especially when you have so much on your plate, it's more risky, right?
Absolutely. Well, I think there tends to, when you're only doing one and your whole life depends on that one product, it's not very diversified. So I do think having a mix of low, high, northern, like that helps in that scenario. But I really truly believe that anything anyone buys in the next 8 months is going to be the time to buy pre-construction. Like, we know when pre-construction is hot, like, you're lucky to get a free assignment. Okay. And it's, I think it's Warren Buffett that said, like, when everyone's buying, I'm nervous, but when no one's buying, that's when I get excited. And, right now we're starting to see it coming back. Like, there's the success is coming out, and you're starting to see this pick up. And I think we're all under the mindset that, like, real estate works when we all believe that if we hang on to it, it'll be better next year. Last year in the pandemic, everyone's mind was all over the place with interest rates. I remember sitting at the beginning of last year going, I don't know if it'll be better at the end of this year. This year when it started, I think everyone felt that it's going to be better. Whether it's, interest rates coming down, just an overall consensus that people are feeling good about things again. So I look at it like, once that turn kind of becomes public knowledge, it just goes. You have so many developers that will have sites, you know what I mean? Like, it's going to be on again. And all those deals you won't be able to bring the 5 clients and say, can we kind of change this a little bit to work with this, right? Remember before you want to get an outlet changed. They'd be like, nope, next person in line. Like, exactly. So I think anybody who's buying, if they're looking for prime real estate in the city, it's in the next 8 months. And then after that, it's going to be on a great ride, because as we were talking before, we have a big housing shortage and a lot of people coming into Canada. There's going to be, in 4 years, all these starts that should have happened will all be feeling it at that point, and rents. And then we're going to be in that position again where everyone's upset. If no one's buying, this is your time to sharpen your pencil and get that deal, get that right unit, get the perfect location. You're spending more money with your real estate agents than you are with your financial planner. So now you have the time to get the right unit, to research the project, to see everything, and not have that agita where you're saying, oh my goodness, I just bought with a developer that's done one project. You know what I mean? This is his first mid-rise project ever. He's been a townhome developer. That leaves a pit in your stomach, right? But I said, like, this is going to be a good run. It's going to be some really interesting real estate coming up in the next 8 months to a year.
Also wanted to ask you, in your opinion, what's the benefit of living in a building that has a hotel portion?
It really, I think, comes down to your lifestyle as well. Like I said, like, a lot of athletes like this because, you used to kind of going to the Four Seasons for your spa, and then going to maybe, King West or one of Patrick Chris's restaurants to get your dining. Having all those hotel amenities in one building, it's a great lifestyle thing. I mean, I want to go down to my pool, and I work a lot. So if I could go down to my pool for 2 hours and not have to bring my drinks, my towel, make my food, I want to go and have 5-star hotel staff bring it to me. That's how I want to spend my couple hours. But really, I think the benefit of being with a hotel type concept like that is, my buildings and my product that I own, it's managed by property management. And they're great, but they're not 5-star hotel management eyes. So, like, I have an investment that I know that the garbage chutes won't be overflowing. The elevator won't have dog pee in it on Sunday until the cleaning crew comes in on Monday. Like, that stuff drives me nuts. I'm a minimalist. I'm obsessive compulsive. I like things clean. So to know that that's what's looking after my product, I really like. And then having a hotel like that in your building, having commercial space that is unique and probably one of the best commercial spaces in Canada, the roof 63rd story, having 70-foot glass ceilings and walls looking over your city, like 70 foot. Like you can have an iconic location, but when you have iconic experiences in a building, that's when it really becomes legendary. So you're having these concepts, and what do you like? I won't get into it, but can you imagine what Katsuya's budget is every year to market itself? And when it markets itself, it's marketing your building. When that world-class restaurant has same thing, marketing budgets. So what's it doing? My residential building, it closes. No one knows about it unless I invite them over. Do you know what I mean? Unless someone was looking and needs to work there and do it. But I got a building that has a multi-million-dollar marketing budget to promote itself after we're done with it. That just doesn't happen in a residential building. So I kind of look at it from that side as well.
So true.
Yeah.
So people will come in while going to Katsuya, they'll see the lobby with the infamous, or is it famous?
Yeah, I think it's both. I mean, probably infamous is, more criminal, but yeah, world famous with Takashi Murakami. Yeah.
And then once they're done dinner, they can go up to the penthouse floor, have some drinks,
That's right.
and also use the hotel.
So the thing is, like, I always am envious of buildings that give back to the city or create, like, if a tree falls in the woods, no one's there to hear it. Did it make a sound? So if no one knows your building is, or no one's been in it, no one wants to rebuy it. No one gets excited about it. But when you have a lobby like that, and I'll say, like, I've said it before, like, one of the first architects I worked for was Italian. And he said, Graham, like, I don't understand you guys in Toronto. You spend no money on your door handles. I'm like, what's your comment? No money on our door handles. He goes, yeah, in Italy, we spend the most money possible because it's the first thing you touch. It sets the tone for the rest of the experience, right? So I always look at lobbies as being that experience, right? And when you have a lobby that is visually appealing at grade and you don't have to clutter it with commercial space because it's a hotel. So you have almost half a block of 20-foot ceilings. And when you walk by and people want to take selfies with that, artwork. And when we picked the artwork, it had to put a smile on everyone's face. So I went to go see it. It was my wife, my kid, myself, all smiled at that. Like, his flower is amazing, right? And then when you have a restaurant like that, think about it. You get married there, you have this experience there that translates, down to the building. So it's a unique proposition that doesn't normally happen. And that's why buildings start to get known for it. You go, I live in the building, like Katsuya, I live there. Right? Like, I remember going to Per Se in New York, and they have a Michelin-starred restaurant in a building, residential building. And I remember, like, going, like, oh, that person in the elevator, like, we don't have this. We come down our elevator, go to Pizza. Do you know what I mean? Like, not the Michelin-starred restaurant with, like, celebrity. Like, it blew my mind, like, forever. That was just, we have room for this in the city of Toronto. Like, we do. When you start to see these world-class names, and then Toronto, like, that's what you should see. We're just don't really build commercial spaces that they want to go into. I say, it's like, if you build it, they will come. People love our city. They love it. That's all they talk about, is how beautiful and nice the people are. What an awful handle. We're beautiful and nice and conservative with our money and have lots of it and smart. Like, that's an amazing worldview to have of Toronto, right? People want a part of it.
It is a great thing about Toronto, actually, that people in Toronto kind of take for granted is, safety, especially a big one. Like, some of the cities in the US, sometimes people will say, oh, I won't even walk out at night because of potential muggings, potentially. But then in Toronto, we just kind of walk around everywhere.
Just clueless about that. You wouldn't even think about it. It's amazing. Yeah, it's a good point.
Very, very nice people around.
Yeah.
You guys are making an impact, which is amazing. Because also the developer could have had more units instead of the restaurant.
It's like 7 stories, right? So it was this ability to say that let's do something completely unique. And that's why I said 400 units in a 70-story building. Like, we're using 7 of the stories to have a restaurant experience that's unlike any other, right? Or take second floor commercial is 10,000 square feet of Katsuya. So there's been a lot of want to be in that building. And yeah, it could have been all tiny units. Like I said, this would normally be about 900 to 1,000 units.
Yeah. From a broker's perspective, we do see a lot more deals or transactions and purchases than the regular person who just purchased for themselves. But then you've been in the industry for 16 years now, and you've seen a lot more deals because everything goes through you as well. Are there any risks that you see, or like, have you seen a lot in the recent, let's say in the last 5 years, where people have bought and they kind of over leverage themselves? They're not able to close.
Yeah, I've always told people, like, when I'm a huge proponent of the 10-day cooling off period. Like the number one thing I say is don't leave anything. Like, I know you think you know your finances, and I said you could have been sleepwalking and gotten credit card debt. I don't even, but figure it all out, right? Because there is a time where people are buying real estate, and I said they lived in a 1% bubble where if interest rates or anything in your life changed by 1%, it threw off your profit margins. Like when I was talking to you guys earlier, the strongest position you can go in when you're going into real estate is the ability to close on it. That gives you every option in the world. If you have the great thing is the leverage, but being able to actually close, because it is easy to get into it. You're 10,000 down, you're 5 and 30, you're you said you're 15% now over 1,200 days, these great deposit structures. But if you're buying it to sell on assignment, like that's scary. Like you need to be powerful. And as an agent, you want to know that someone is not a wounded bird scenario. Like if they're going to come to you and say, I'm able to close, but if an opportunity works on the assignment market, I'm willing to look at it. If an opportunity works on the leasing market, I'm willing to look at it. Like that gives you power, because in real estate, if any hold over 5 years has pretty much outperformed any other type of asset you could buy, right? So if you can ride out the storm by renting it out until that comes back again, all that leverage time you just used over that 7 years, like I said, buy $1 million stock, it's $1 million today. Buy $1 million real estate, it's 15% over 4 years, and you just let that leverage ride. But you got to be able to close, because if the world changes by 1%, like we've seen, you got to fire sell your stuff. It's awful for you. It's awful for the other people in the building. If you're in a commodity project where it's the same unit all the way up and you're fire selling your unit, you've hurt everyone in that building. Like it's, that's why I also think like having buildings that aren't all small units that have some people who don't need to sell is a good thing.
There's also for as you mentioned, the 15% over 4 years, I think we're privileged and sometimes we take for granted, because I don't think other countries have the same thing.
They don't. Like most, even in the States, you're building it and then paying, like you're not getting that leverage. You have to have it to build. It's very risky here. You sell 75%, you go to construction. It's a very safe market, right? But not everyone gets that leverage to put down. So
even for Dubai, at one time I was trying to sell Dubai, the deposit is way higher. Can never find 15% of 4 years.
Yeah,
spoiled.
That's and when they come out near construction, where you're after you go into the ground, you're getting a 10 and 10, a 10% deposit structure. Like that doesn't normally happen, or 5% down. Like that's incredible. But it does make people say, "Oh, in 4 years, I'll probably get a better job. I'm sure I'll have more savings." Like it's a tough way to go into it, right? And for an agent, like I said, it's easy to kind of say, that sounds like a great plan, but at the end of the day, you guys know what it's like. You want your clients to feel good. You don't want them calling you every month. There's a news article that goes, they need you to analyze for them and how that works on their investment. You want to be able to put that down, recognize that leverage over hopefully 7 years is that compounded interest and leverage, and then be able to sit at the end with smart agents who know the market and say, maybe I'll do fully furnished. Yeah, there's not many in the building. I haven't seen any. That is there's not much of that supply. You would benefit wisely from doing that. Now you're setting your client apart. He's paying for his furniture in 2 months and he's got a product that's unique. But if they can't get to that point, you're basically just trying to get them out of it. And no one does well then. Like I said, it hurts the rest of the building.
Now we're seeing more condos in downtown that they have no parking.
Mm-hmm.
Also, some buildings, they have no balconies.
Yeah.
What's the reason?
So the reason for the balconies are when you get high buildings, and it's tough to have big balconies. They're very small. The wind whips up there's tons of restrictions for it. If you look at number 2 is architects hate it. If you look at buildings around the world, like most of them don't have balconies. They have great amenity areas, great, but just to go out and stand on your balcony, I don't think people smoke that much anymore. And especially in Canada, like it really doesn't make sense. You're taking up all this great square footage that could go in for, even design, right? So you're not seeing that. And that was one of the things, and I will brag a bit about our building, the Freed Hotel and Residence, is Gordon was from Toronto. He wanted to make a building, and his comment was, every other building looks like an off-the-rack suit purchase. I want it bespoke and tailored. Because when you look at commercial buildings, they have like the CIBC building, those diamonds. I reference it all the time. It looks different at different times of night because you have these great reflections off these huge pieces of glass, right? In residential, you have to have an operable window in every single room. So you end up having these squares that you crank open, or they're called punch-out windows, right? And it creates these gaps in these big windows because you have to have a mullion. So you have these huge sheets of glass that get cut up. Looks great for factory windows because they blend in, but not great for the others. So architects hate it. The window's open from outside. It looks awful for the rest of the building. On the inside, it ruins your views because typically that's where you're looking out and seeing. So he created basically a mullion that runs on the outside of the building, and it's a perforated metal mullion, and inside it sits a floor-to-ceiling fin, and that becomes your operable window. Okay, you have to see some pictures. It's a podcast. It's not the greatest to explain it to you, but that is part of it. Is that it makes the building very sleek, lets it have that operable air, and really it gives you that air without those balconies that architects dislike. Like I said, for 4 months out of the year here, you get a building that looks like you've seen our skyline. It's bikes out on belt. Like it ends up being storage. It's cluttered. I want to have beautifully curated amenity spaces that I can go use and architecturally stunning buildings. So that's one of them why you're not seeing as much of that. But it really is. You can't get big terraces. No one wants a 4x4 balcony just to stand out there. You want a terrace, you can't get them on tall buildings. You're going to have glass that are 20 feet tall so you don't blow out the top of it. The other one with parking is when you look at major cities around the world, Toronto's still sitting here going, let's build bike lanes. Let's also do driving. Let's also do Uber. Let's also we're everything to everybody right now. But you're seeing them start to say, no, it's downtown. You're not going to be able to drive. So moving forward, a lot of these larger buildings, you're not going to see any parking coming with it. You're starting to see those come out in the luxury buildings in the main areas where there's just no parking and guys are, renting off. You're starting to see the car condos. But they're trying to get us out of that dependence of having 2 cars with every 4-person family, right?
We feel it. The people with the cars, we feel the traffic every day.
And you know what? I'll say when it's and when you're maybe on the outskirts or more GTA, but when you're downtown and you're in that 5-minute cities that we're all talking about, we have that in Toronto. You can walk 5 minutes, King West, downtown, entertainment, finance, that works there. I get it when you're getting outside. It's very difficult to do because our transit hasn't picked up to other cities. So it'll be gradual, but where you see our most dense, most money spent on infrastructure per square foot, which is our city centers, you're going to start to see very little parking. We see it with the zoning coming up. They're not having it. Even for us, we have parking with every penthouse unit. We were very lucky. 1 parking. And the parking they gave us wouldn't even service it. So we did one of the automated systems. So that's the way to maximize it. But again, it's expensive, right? So it's starting to become if you want to have a car, it's a luxury. And that's where I'm seeing people know that. So they go, oh, penthouses come with parking. I want one. Because you're not going to be able to have your 2 cars downtown. You're going to have your garage, kind of maybe in the outskirts. But that's certainly coming.
I'm sure the people who can afford the penthouses, they wouldn't even mind not leaving the building because you have so many great amenities.
They do. And most have drivers. They don't want to worry about parking. And then you say, when you get to the city, if I had to hear my mom, a 5-year-old, my mom hates driving to the city, nervous Nelly, but I always say, once you're here and you're in the heart of the city, I don't worry about parking, meters. I don't know because I'm walking everywhere. It's the best and it's freeing. I don't worry about driving and drinking or anything. You walk out your door, you go to where you want to do, and you come back and you get to look at the beautiful city, get exercise while you're walking. But I get it. Doesn't work on the outskirts. Still kind of need that parking there.
And we get to see more beautiful architecture coming.
Absolutely. It's just maximizing those, the type of stuff we actually use.
So you've been living in downtown for...
I have. I'll say that's I think where my passion for architecture comes from, is that I always travel for architecture and food. I live basically 2 minutes from Adelaide and Duncan, that site, and knowing referencing that part of the city and looking at it. But that's really where the drive to be in real estate came in. I'll be honest, I'm not smart enough to be an architect. I'm not, but I get to work with all those. And because I know sales and I know what sells, sometimes these guys don't know our city that well. And to be able to push design a little more because I know certain areas can handle it, I got to say, it makes me very proud to, be walking with my kid and know that skyline got a little more beautiful because we knew we could get it. We didn't just do a commodity project, and we brought some great things to the city.
I want to ask, what's your favorite current building in downtown?
Current built building, I'll say I've kept a unit. My first unit I ever purchased was in this building. And I remember doing like townhome renovation flips in Etobicoke, like myself and with my buddies to get into the city. Like it was a barrier. Like I remember my first townhome was like 309,000, renovated it, sold it for 409, did it a couple more times. And I was able to buy Tip Top Lofts, a penthouse there. And, I just love that building. My grandpa bought his like first suit there in like probably like 1930 or something. There was always a picture sitting in his office of Tip Top Taylor's factory where he like this black and white picture. And to me, that was like, when you came around the Gardner, and you're down and like come to a baseball game and you'd see Tip Top there. I even petitioned and was to get the sign lit up again. Like I love that building, the Art Deco design. It's just, it brings back a lot of good memories for me.
I think I've heard The Weeknd used to rent there as well.
Yeah, I lived beside Fred Van Fleet when I was there for a bit. Who was up there? It was Catherine Zeta-Jones had a place at one point. It was just, anytime there's good architecture, it's just great. And I always get amazing renters in that building too. It's right by Porter Airport, but yeah.
What's the worst building?
Oh, the worst building? Well, I'd say, I don't know. I'm lucky enough with, really, like, our brokerage PSR, we're a tight group. We've all been, I've been doing it for 16. My partner, Kimberly Mardal, she's been doing it for 14. Everyone on my team, we're small. And honestly, we're lucky in the sense that we get to pick more of the projects we do. It's tough to sell something that you don't want to buy yourself or you're not passionate about. It's tough. So I've been lucky enough to be able to not be so big that I have to keep feeding the beast with projects, that I can pick and choose projects. So luckily I haven't been part of very many bad ones. That's for sure.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. Politically correct answer.
In terms of real estate market in Toronto, I feel like based on the stats, based on trends, I think the worst is behind us. So definitely a great opportunity for buyers in downtown Toronto, especially with a unique project that's coming. Aside from that project, like how would you recommend people choose projects?
For me, location. So being now where you're close to transit, where, you don't have to have a car because that's coming. And plus most people can't afford that anymore, right? So I think it's, when you're looking at it, it's location, it's limited number of units. Like if anything, I saw, we've been through a lot. Like we're pretty robust to go through a pandemic, like the recession, and really we're still doing pretty good. So it just makes me so excited about values in the next 7 years and what's happening. But like anything I feel if it's limited in numbers, you're protecting yourself a lot more. If it's of quality and you're working with the best minds, you're going to get amazing product. So I'd say, if you're looking at that, probably the way you look at most things, if you were to get a watch, if you were to get a car, like you're valuing those things greater. And I think the same should hold true for real estate purchases. Yeah.
I would say value is linked to scarcity.
I do. I think it's, it's not just PSF. It's not just end-door price. It's sitting there looking at it and getting excited about what you're buying. It is. And if I can live in anything that I bought in any tough time, I'm not hurting. I have a lot of real estate. And when everyone asks me, wow, everything's hurting, like how much money have you lost? I go, nothing. I'm not selling. I don't have to sell. So it doesn't, that's it. Doesn't affect me. I got great product that got great renters while we held everything through, who took care of my product while it was sitting and going through tough times. And now we'll ride that up, and didn't have to sell. So not doing something that's forcing your hand, and then getting something that you truly are excited about. You feel like those two things. Take everything else out of the equation. I think those are two very important ones.
Amazing.
So Graham, you've been in the industry for quite some time. You work with a lot of brokers. Do you have any advice for the agents out there that are looking to do more pre-construction?
I would say, I think we're in a market where you can't be everything to everybody. I mean, I don't think anyone likes a restaurant that serves everything. They don't do anything well. Right. So I do think we've had some very robust times where you could just kind of be in line with something and do well, but I think they need to bring value to their clients. I think they need to know the projects. Really, a great agent is that intermediary between, the developer, if we're talking pre-construction, or the seller, and you guys are there to deliver value to your clients. And if we have great things to give and you guys are delivering value and your clients can trust that, it's going to create, said, times where I can see, like, if there's no thought that goes into it, it's very difficult to trust that person. The client is doing a lot of the research. I think we need to get better at highlighting the things that are important, not just the marketable things, and really be able to sit down and have a conversation with our clients about a building, about their needs, about their real financial situation, and be able to put that whole picture together for them, and then put them with the three that work. Right? As I say, like, there's times where people have said to me, Graham, I want to buy pre-con. I go, it's not the time. I can put you in something, but I don't believe in any of these products that are coming out. So please wait until there's something that you should be putting your money into. And I don't think that's the mentality of a lot of agents. So I'd like to see more of that. So like I said, again, if you're asking the right questions and demanding, we're going to get better product. We're going to get better agents, and our clients are going to make more money to not have to sell when something goes wrong, that they can, and that just makes it stronger for everybody.
So you're saying instead of selling everything, just try to pick a good project so that we're forcing the developers' hands as well to build better projects.
That's right. Know the area. Know, like, you take if you don't know where to go to dinner for after the showing, that's a problem. Like, you got to know the areas. You got to know it. It's their biggest investment of their life. And if they don't feel comfortable with you, like I said, they're going to find somebody else, because they'll tell you, like, there's someone who knows that knowledge where they're going to feel that now they're with the right person. And that's happening more than ever. It's not just about access. They want knowledge.
Absolutely.
Just one more question I want to ask you. A lot of people ask us who are buying these condos and properties because no one can afford them. That's what some people think. So since you work on the developer side, who do you see are buying these condos? Are they like just regular people? Are the people partnering up with each other?
It runs the gamut. I'll say, when things were very hot and deposits are low, you're seeing everyone want to get into it. The constant clientele that always buys are lawyers, doctors, accountants. They are constantly always, like, my client list, they'll do one a year or one every 2 years. There's always. So they diversify. They see the advantage in leveraging. They really get that. So that happens a lot. The others that are buying are people who are living in condos themselves. You guys see, the government's not building our rental product.
No, they're not.
Your clients are supporting the rental product. So at the end of the day, they buy their condo, they see living in it for 5 years, they go to the bank, they re-up, they realize, I can refinance, look how much money I've made in this. Wow, there's one on my floor that's coming up, and I know what this is worth and how much I'm going to grab that one. I can watch that one. I can do that. And that's where you're starting to see most of our rental product is by people who own one and then two investments themselves. So once they make a little more, they do another one, and they build an empire off servicing our rental market, which we know is going to go off in the next couple of years.
It's easier for people who already own properties to own more properties.
It is. You're right. Getting the first time home buyer, there are benefits and help, but luckily we're in a very strong, kind of economy, in the sense that there's a lot of parents that help for that first deposit. There's a lot of gifting, right? A lot of co-signing, and that's great. That's typically that transfer of wealth from baby boomers down is going to first time home buyers, and not everyone has that luxury. But that's where I said that there's going to be areas where people can buy into, like center of the city, the most amazing architecture. Maybe not. It spreads out. Maybe King West now is a little too expensive, but it used to be, then you go to Liberty Village and then you move out. Like, there'll be reasons for that, but I think it's guys like you and I who have clients, and they're buying something that they've seen being profitable in the past and putting their money where their mouth is. And I said, seeing a great amount of wealth being made by duplicating that process every 3 to 4 years.
Yeah. Like, it's definitely to focus on the process instead of, how can I even afford it? Because a lot of times that first property is going to be much tougher to buy than your third, fifth, 10th, maybe.
That's right. The banks get trust. And that's why I see a lot of people, their parents come in when their kids are starting high school and they want to buy pre-con that's done in 5 years, 6 years when their kids go to university, because they want to use that leverage time, because they're afraid that, hey, if I go to get one when they're in university, there's no way we can afford this. So let's set the seed now, have it mature, benefit from it, have our kids go to school. And most of the time they keep that asset because the rents are so good.
Yeah.
And it just ends up being something they pass down. So I see a lot of wealth being, generated that way.
So it's almost exponential, kind of like putting a bamboo seed in, and
It
takes
is.
years for it to actually even come up.
And even like, think about it as your prime residence. Like, I'm seeing a lot more who want to be, like, we had a bit of an exodus during the pandemic, and people wanted space, and everyone realized I don't want to drive 30 minutes to Jack Astor's for my luxury meal, once a week. Like, I miss the city, right? So you're seeing a lot of end users coming back into the city. And for me, that's why I have larger product. I think it's tax-free capital gains when it's your own product, and you get to live in your investment. You always say, when a stock market doesn't go well, I cannot build a house of stock sheets around me and have it protect me. But right now, if the real estate or whatever, anything goes bad, my investment takes care of my wife, my kid. They get to enjoy it, and I get tax-free capital gains on it.
That's actually one of the biggest benefits of owning real estate in Canada. Your principal residence, you don't have to pay tax on it when you sell.
It's amazing. You get to use your asset. Normally we're pointing at these things or looking at it in the stocks or whatever it is. I'm in it with my kid who gets to have the experience of having that city life and having the culture and having all of that while it's an investment. I just think that's the best thing going. So, yeah.
World-class amenities in the city.
Yeah, like we're a world-class city with world-class architecture and the best people. Like, I think that's something, like, I want to invest in that, and I want to invest with those partners that are bringing that in. That was a lot of fun chatting with you guys. Just a nice conversation, together.
You're welcome anytime to come and speak about unique projects.
I appreciate it, gentlemen.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you guys for watching.